I think history is very important to look at when we're talking about corporate tax, because people think the U.S. now is a low tax society, a model for Ireland perhaps, but it hasn't always been that way. In fact, before the Reagan era of the 1980s, the U.S. had pretty vigorous tax enforcement and pretty high rates of taxes both for corporations and individuals, and that really changed as a result of a conservative attack on the tax system that is with us still today. I think if you look at from the American side of things really changed in the Reagan era in the 1980s, where corporations used to pay a much higher effective rate of tax, individuals used to pay a higher rate of tax, and there was a wider revolt against taxation, which had a populist element to it, but really benefited the wealthiest Americans and corporate interests in the end. I think what this Apple case raises a sort of broader issue about corporate taxation and how it's possible for corporations to avoid taxes. American multinationals have been doing this really since the 1980s and 1990s, and the certain kind of political environment has fed this, but we have to realize that the consequences of corporations not paying taxes are felt in a lack of public services. If they're not paying taxes, someone needs to make up the deficit, if you like, or the funds simply aren't there.
In my opinion, Apple is in Ireland primarily because of access to the EU market. We have two very big advantages being in the EU. One is that we will, if Britain leaves the European Union, be the only English language country left. And secondly, most of the multinational companies coming to Ireland are not coming for the taxes or for the tax base. They're coming because of access to the European market. And if that was denied, then I think there would be a huge drop in US investment and other investment into Ireland. There are three things we need to learn from the Brexit experience. The first is, if you have decades of anti-EU rhetoric from all sides of the political divide, you can't then turn it around in 2 months and make people believe that what you've been criticising for 30 years is now actually in your interests. The second is the huge gap between perception and reality in the British debate. And we had that famous line that we don't need experts, we don't want facts. So the most striking example of that was on migration, that the people's perception of the level of migration, in some cases it was 3 times the actual level of migration. People vote on perception, not on reality. And I suppose the most important lesson is the alternatives to EU membership. What would happen when Britain left the EU was never discussed, and the questions were avoided. And Britain is now going to face, in my opinion, 3 to 7 torturous years facing that reality.